Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for this opportunity. I was asked to speak about this future proofing of Indian industry. I don't know, first of all, I'm not very happy with this future proofing as the word itself. But I don't know what to say, future ready, future proofing, whatever it is, I think we all understand what it is. How does one future proof anything, right? I've been kind of thinking about it for a long time, okay, and I've been kind of reading also and saying, how do people do it, right? And then we think the answer is simple, right? All of us have been talking right from the morning. We know what needs to be done, but of course, all of us are struggling how to do it. It's about innovation, right? How do you kind of protect, nurture, and grow innovation in whatever organizations we are? I'm from an academic institution, but we are facing the same challenges which any other organization is facing. In fact, way back when I was in IIM Calcutta, we used to have a professor called S.K. Chakravarti, and he used to teach a course called Managing Self in an Organization. And he used to tell me that, when you are on, at the wave level in the sea, it looks very, volatile and a lot of changing VUCA kind of environment. But we all know that still waters run deep. In fact, he was saying the reverse, the deep waters run still. So perhaps the strategy of life for even organizations is to future-proof, is to get to the deep. Don't play on the surface where there are waves, but be happy to be able to get into the depth. Let's say a few meters, a few kilometers as the sea may be, where things are not that volatile, things are very stable, but they are the bedrock of what happens on the top of that, all the changes and everything. Right from morning, I've been hearing words like bracing for the change, adapting to the change. So most of the people we are all talking about reacting, right? Things are changing, and some people are able to react faster, and some people are able to react slower. But today, the world, if you're talking about and saying innovation, at one time, innovation for a lot of us was aspiration. We must innovate. It was an aspiration. After some time, it became an inspiration, right? But today, if you want to future-proof yourself or you want to be ready for future, whatever it is, you can neither innovate. It can neither be an aspiration or an inspiration. It has to be a system. So industrial innovation has to be a systemic effort. Now let's look at, I do work with companies like Dassault Systems and AWS and quite a lot of global companies who actually do this day in and day out. And I was talking to them, how do they actually do it? So in fact, Dassault gave me a case study of how innovation system, they said, is about like aircraft design. There is lift and drag. So identify what lifts and identify what drags. So let's say in lift, it's essentially design, the design of the aircraft itself, essentially the architecture, the hardware and the software, right? The appropriate design and architecture will make sure that the aircraft lifts. Similarly here, the organizations have to understand what lifts innovation in that organization. And we have to somehow design our architecture, our systems, our organization, or rather build the whole organization around that lifting the innovation. But that's not the problem. A lot of organizations have been able to perhaps do it. There are also a lot of drags. What are these drags? Previously, all of us faced the cultural drag. Oh, we were doing this way. We are not willing to change. We don't want to go to the new level, right? That's a cultural drag. Most organizations, I think today in 2025 have come out of that cultural drag. We no longer have a cultural drag. But we have other drags. A lot of us have systemic drags. What is systemic drag? Our data is still kept in silos. People don't talk to each other. Systems don't talk to each other. There are solutions for this also, right? There are lots of platforms, companies have designed where they want people to come on, work together, collaborate, share information. And the whole work is on a platform so that, this problem of siloed data and all that is kind of overcome. There is another cognitive drawback. What is cognitive drawback? Where we want no dissonance. We want stability. Humans want stability. We hate dissonance. We hate uncertainty, right? But we all know that the world today is very uncertain. So how, organizations have to find a way of, overcoming this cognitive dissonance of individuals and organizations. But I feel the most important today, which is holding back a lot of us, is what we call it as the observational or the visual track. What is this visibility or the observational track? It's very simple. People can't see future, right? A lot of times people don't get on board, as he was using, getting the ducks in a row. Why don't the ducks get into a row? Well, if it's very obvious that if by getting into a row they all will benefit, they will all get into a row. But a lot of us can't observe, can't see the future, right? Can't visualize what's likely to happen if all of us work together. Whatever that the top management is saying, whatever Google is saying, whatever AI is saying, we really can't see how that's going to improve what we're going to do. So we call it as the visibility or the observability drag. Global corporations have actually found ways of overcoming all these things. It's not that the know-how is not there, right? Okay. For example, some of you might have heard of the model-based system engineering. Previously, most system engineering was document-based. Why were 3D models used or models used over documents? In fact, a lot of people ask me, I am a very big fan of digital twins. I'm a very big fan of digital models. And people ask me, so what is the great deal about digital? What is so good about 3D, which is not there in 2D? 3D helps you to visualize. 2D doesn't help you to visualize. A document doesn't help you to visualize, but a 3D model helps you to visualize. So if you have a model-based design to any particular problem, right, and you use maybe a 3D model actually, instead of a document or a 2D design, right, this observational drag. In fact, a lot of times, even in our university, people say, they ask, okay, sir, I want to do it, but what will happen if I do it? Right? There's a cost to change, right? There's a cost and investment involved in the change. And they keep asking us, okay, why should I change? Even if I change, can you assure me, can you make me visible? What benefits will I actually get? So if organizations are able to get, in fact, most of us are stuck in these drags. Most of us perhaps have a design, and in fact, we are not that, the problem is not so much in the lift that is required for innovations in the, in our structures, in our architecture, in our software, hardware. But it is in managing these drags that I think most of us are kind of finding difficult. So if you look at some of the case studies of, every Indian organization which is successful today, every global organization that is successful today is doing part of it, right? You really can't survive today if without really, implementing some part of future proofing, right? Okay, be it in the, lift side or on the drag side, right? Otherwise you will die today, right? But the problem is coming that very few organizations are perhaps able to really perfectly do it, right? So in fact, we used to say at one time that, okay, we were service organizations, then we said we have product organizations. So today people are no longer talking about one product, right? You're talking about a product of, or a system of products. Then today we're talking about system of systems. How does one develop a system of systems that will constantly keep, churning out innovation, constantly keep churning out new products? Some may work, some may not work. That means I need to get down to that depth of still water, because I can't do it sitting on top of, the sea or where I'm working in the waves. So, literally, figuratively, the organizations have to dig deep and get down to that level of, this thing and this. But ironically, how are the global corporations doing it? Actually, if you look at most of the successful case studies, right, they have been buying it out, actually, right? Global R&D is a sham. Okay, if you look at any of the key these things, global R&D is all about buying good R&D and integrating it with their old R&D, right? I know an organization which has some 50 R&D centers. I said, what do you do in these R&D centers? They don't do any R&D. They keep buying R&D and they keep integrating that into this thing. So obviously, acquisitions is one way most global corporations have been able to ride themselves out of this, being obsolete, right, and being future ready, right? Obviously, so if you have cash, a lot of these problems, can be smoothened because you are able to buy, and things like that. Now, if you are not able to do it, what can Indian organizations do? And that's where I think we are actually missing the trick. All of us trying to optimize within our systems, including our universities, right? Within our organization, we are looking for talent inside the organization. We are looking for, innovation inside the organization. We are looking for resources inside the organizations. A lot of us are not networked into the society, right? For example, most organizations don't know what the startup system of India is doing in their field. Is there something that's happening that's world shaking, right? It may be a 2-member company or a 3-member company, but they may be doing a great type of work in your area of technology, right? And you, because somebody just now said that big organizations have bureaucracies, big organizations have complacency, perhaps are not able to see them. So I feel one great way of future proofing for Indian organizations is by actually tapping yourself. Normally we are dismissive, saying, okay, what Startup India, this is just, some kind of a slogan by the Prime Minister, what is happening in Startup India, what is happening in Stand Up India, kuch nahi ho raha hai, and stuff like that. But instead of that, if organizations seriously spend time and see what's happening in campuses, what's happening in IIT Chennai IT Park, what's happening in IIT Kanpur IIT Park, what's happening in other universities IT parks, what's happening in the startup system in India, you might be able to find, for example, let's say I'm a $1 billion reserve, cash reserve, right? I'll take out some 10% of it, 5% of it and say, okay, I'll invest in startups. Because as everybody said, it is these fresh startups, it is these young guys who are sitting in campus who are actually driving innovation. Just about 1 month back, I was in Bangalore and I had seen 2 just young people, college students in final year, producing a really good, GIS enabled, where they, in fact, you give a khata number and plot number, they can actually tell you the whole history of the plot, whether it's been sold, is there any dispute. And these 2 guys sitting in Pune, they had a problem with their own house, when he bought something and there was a dispute. To solve that dispute, he developed actually a product. And when I started looking at it, it was really fantastic. And then I said, how many people do you have? He said, I have 2 people. And both the students actually, right? Now, this is where I feel that the best way of today, all of us actually be able to future-proof ourselves is by actually networking beyond our borders, beyond our own, organizational boundaries, and actually look at what's happening in the country, what's happening in the world, what's happening in different campuses. And this is where global corporations actually, score over us. Most of them have incubators and accelerators. Every global corporation has an incubator and an accelerator. I don't know how many of the organizations, Indian organizations sitting here have, incubators and accelerators. Why is it that Indian, corporate sector doesn't have incubators and accelerators? Promote more and more Indian startups, Indian students and others getting into it. You give them the tools that you have, give them the data you have, ask them to do POCs for you, work together on a collaborative thing, have a platform approach to it. Bring their innovations on board, right? Let them collaborate with your particular staff and things like that. And this is what global corporations are doing. Constantly, getting engaged with, startups world over, looking at good technologies, promoting technology, evaluating them, throwing some money at them, investing, and at the right time, buying them over and kind of integrating and stuff like that. So, just if you're looking for solutions inside, all of us, whether it's my Centurion University or you, or any of you, I don't think we'll be able to future-proof ourselves. It's only by constantly looking outside, constantly networking with the whole world as such, I think most of us will be able to kind of, future-proof ourselves. Thank you very much.